Everyone. Welcome to our presentation today. My name is Dave Rogalski, and I'm a departmental advisor in economics and have been working at CU Boulder, now going on my 11th year. So I have a background in higher education. I was an undergrad student in history and philosophy with a minor in economics, and went on to graduate school in educational leadership and policy studies. And always wanted to get into advising and have that opportunity 11 years ago coming to CU Boulder, and worked right away getting vested in the economics department with Ken. And so we have a great distinction of being the longest serving advising team on our campus. So being together for 11 years, which is super awesome. So before we get into nuts and bolts of our presentation, I'll let Ken introduce himself real quick.
Hello, my name's Ken Bonetti. I've been advising in economics here at CU Boulder for 17 years on March 1st. And before that, I was an open option advisor at Colorado State University for many years while I was teaching economics as well. So fairly steeped in economics, and do have a broad perspective on academic advising and so forth. So I hope I can be of some assistance to y'all. And welcome to our presentation.
And just to give a little backdrop in terms of economics program at CU Boulder in terms of numbers. On average, we have declared in our major or minor roughly 1,300 students year to year. So we are one of the larger programs in arts and sciences for sure. And then we also have a lot of students who are exploratory in nature and kind of on that economics pathway in their first year or upon transfer. So Ken and I have that awesome opportunity to basically work with the vast majority of our declared majors and minors from their second year through graduation. And in particular, as it relates to transfer students, any transfer student that comes to CU Boulder, if they've earned at least 3 or even 6 college level credits, we get to work with them right away through our department connection. So we really love working with our transfer students. And again, kudos to Katie, McKenna, and Jessica for all the wonderful work they're doing, and Lauren Brown as well with our exploratory studies division and pre-transfer advising, because we're really growing some awesome partnerships together to benefit our students. So hopefully you'll see that reflected today. And so basically, as we go through and look at, there we go, what today's presentation is all about, we're going to try to cover as much information as we can in kind of the basic 4 main areas that we work with our students on, which is reviewing the econ major and minor requirements, providing some general tips for transfer populations, obviously our community college students, to discuss a little bit about career trajectories for our econ grads, and then to cover some basic opportunities and resources that we present on campus for our econ population. So we'll get started right away with going through our major requirements, and I'm going to turn this over to Ken to start going through this curriculum.
Okay, the economics majors pretty typical of social science majors, and David has a chart that shows, but roughly a third of the requirements are the major requirements, a third are the general ed, and a third are electives. So this is somewhat applicable to other social science majors. We have a 34 credit major requirement, not including math. Math can range from 3 to 10 credits depending on the math track you take and so forth, and I'll get into that in a little bit. We have 3 steps, A, B, and C. The first step is the lower division theory. Micro first, macro second. They're treated as mutually exclusive in the same semester. So you have to do micro and then macro. And then concurrently or prior to that, you should have should be working on your math track. And there's more than, there's two basic math tracks. One is the standard track of the 3-credit calculus course, Math Tools for Economists 2. The prerequisites can be either college algebra or what we have another course called Math Tools 1, Econ 1088, or pre-calculus with trigonometry will serve as a prerequisite for Econ 1088. The Math 1330, just real quickly, is an option. It's another business calculus option. It's offered online through Continuing Ed here at Boulder. The Math 1300 Calculus 1 track is for those students who wish to take a more advanced trajectory in their mathematical background in economics, particularly those who want to go on to graduate studies in quantitative science, social sciences, and in business finance, or graduate school in economics. And that involves a pre-calculus or testing in. You can test into Econ 1088 as well, but test into pre-calculus, then go on to Calc 1 or test directly into Calc 1 and take that. You cannot move off of step A until you've completed calculus and at least one of the lower division theory courses, because those are prerequisites for the intermediate level. The intermediate theory can be taken in any order, but it's intermediate micro, intermediate macro, statistics and computer applications, and then a choice of a couple econometrics courses, which is applied statistics and economic theory. Typically, students do the micro and stats, and then the macro and econometrics in succeeding terms. The step C, which has the intermediate coursework as prerequisite, are the field courses in economics, such as natural resources, environmental, public policy, economic development, economic history, and on, business-related economics like money and banking. And there are typically 4 courses required in that, or 12 credits, but students coming from a community college where the principal's courses are only 3 credits, they have to take 5 just to maintain the minimum, to achieve the minimum credit count. And but actually, in a way, that's seems preferable to many of my students coming out of the community college. They get to take more field courses coming out of a community college than students that take their 4-credit lower division requirements at CU Boulder or elsewhere through a advanced placement. So you can get through this whole program 2 courses at a time, even with all the math, in 6 terms. So students have room to spread things out, to take other coursework, and really enjoy themselves, mix it up, not get too burnt out and all that. So and also just to note, the community college courses are in red on the flow chart showing which principals courses coming out of our Colorado community colleges work for us, will transfer. And then Math 125 survey of calculus is like a business calculus without trig. And then the Calc 1 Math MAT 201 will be equivalent to our Math 1300. It's advised to try to get the math done while in community college.
And so we'd like to explain to our students that the movement through the economics curriculum is very methodical, very sequential. And for lack of a better term, we have to pay dues with the theory on the front end before we could put theory to practice with topical electives. So a lot of times we have to work, closely with students to say, just keep chugging away at those theory courses. We know they're dry, but it'll pay off at the end. And later on, I'm going to pull up hopefully a PDF that's going to show you the wide range of all of our topical electives that we offer for the major and the minor. But again, just a quick review, the GT Pathways courses that share the equivalencies are listed up top. And this is what the vast majority of Colorado community college students are going to bring to the table upon transfer. Basically micro, macro principles and their math component. Sometimes transfer students from outside the state might bring a few more econ electives with them, but basically we're getting those principles level theory courses accomplished alongside the math requirement. And then this is the rundown of the econ minor. So you see it basically has the same flow as the major in terms of being very methodical and very sequential. Students are going to complete micro and macro principles. We're going to get through the calculus requirement in time. And then intermediate micro theory, intermediate macro theory are required for that minor. And then it's just a little bit laid back in terms of the elective requirements. So our minor students can choose to engage a 3,000 level economics elective for one of their required electives. The other must be a 4,000 level elective. Our community college transfer students, again, to make up for the lesser credit provided through the principles courses, they're going to have one more elective to go. And one of the main differences between the minor curriculum and the major curriculum is if you see down below here in bold, our economic statistics course that's required of the major is not an elective offering a student can use for our minor completion. So stats is very much a stats course. It's not a very economics heavy course. So our department curriculum committee said for minor students, we want them to get more exposure and more engaged with economics content as opposed to the stats material. Anything to throw in there, KB?
Yeah, one more thing to add about the statistics. The statistics that you take, that students take at the community college will not count toward the statistics requirement in economics. It's a nice prep for our higher level statistics, but it's definitely not necessary. And so I would only advise them to take that stats if they really want to have a little bit of a leg up for the higher level stats and that they get in this department, or if they're on their way to the business college.
Okay. So the basic breakdown for an economics major on campus, it almost breaks out evenly into thirds, but we wanted to show this slide so that everyone can see in terms of the overall breakdown, 120 credit hours required of graduation, and roughly 31% of those credits are going to come directly through the major requirements. 31% are going to come through the remaining general education requirements that an econ major is going to complete. So that's going to include, for the most part, 2 writing courses, 4 arts and humanities based courses, 4 natural science based courses, 1 with a lab component, and then depending on overlapping opportunities, the diversity requirement as well for our gen ed completion. So it's basically 37-ish credits for the gen ed completion. It's roughly 37 credits for the major completion. So what we wanted to show was that general elective credit space for an econ student is the most generous area. So our major blends very well for students picking up a second major or at least 1 minor, if not more types of credentials. So Ken, do you want to walk through this a little bit?
Sure. Just on one general statement about that pie chart that David showed. That's pretty typical of social sciences and humanities here at CU anyway. We have those others might have slightly fewer general electives, but there really is a lot of opportunities in those disciplines to do a second major or a couple minors or a certificate and a minor. There's all kinds of possibilities. So it's important to help students develop that while they're in community college. So you can see from this nice slide, I like all the colors and the graphic, the opportunities that are available to pair with economics. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of possibilities in all fields. I have students all over the place combining econ and various minor certificate programs and majors or double degrees, such as in engineering or with business. The elective space that they have available in econ, if they start early on, make choices early on into the secondary field that they'd like to consider as a pair to pair with econ, can finish a double major and sometimes even a minor on in addition, depending on double dips in the general ed and so forth, within 120 credits or not much over, well within the 4-year goal. But what's important, I think, at the community college level is and David has another slide about this, but those students who really want to go on to the 4-year school versus those who might want to stop with a associate's degree. And if they go on to the 4-year school, I think it's important, not only since they'll get their general ed requirements out of the way and their basic econ math pairings and step A out of the way, but to do exploratory electives to test the waters in other fields so that they can come in to the 4-year school and have a variety of coursework that they can look forward to in a variety of fields, so they can get both breadth and depth in their degree program in the 4-year school. So just a little bit about the emphases. We have 4 emphases: quantitative, public policy, international, and environmental/natural resources. Those involve specific upper division electives around those themes. And then they have students required to add ancillary non-economics courses around those themes. Obviously math and stats for the quantitative, but fields such as international affairs, political science, ethnic studies, sociology, geography, around other themes, the other themes. And it works really well. And if they're planning ahead, they can actually use those to double dip with their general ed requirements. And at the very least, it'll come out of their elective space and can dovetail with a second major or a minor really nicely. I have students coming out with credentials like, in fact, I had one today, double major in international affairs with economics and an international emphasis in economics and a political science minor. So he's coming out with like 4 credentials for work in international affairs. The same thing can happen in the environmental field and in public policy if students plan ahead, and if and particularly in the community college, to get some of those exploratory electives behind them so that they can make some choices early on and effectively use their 120 credits for their degree.
And I think that's the beauty of the economics curriculum, is it blends so well with every other academic discipline that we offer. And so we're always going to work with our students to encourage the exploration and say, what would you feel is a great pairing with your economics training? And obviously what you see on this page are some of the more popular combinations, but as Ken mentioned, we cover all bases. So just yesterday, I worked with a double major between econ and ethnic studies, and they also have a communications minor and a business minor. So that kind of mixing and matching component is something we take a lot of pride with our students, to say, let's make your degree as unique to your skills and to your motivations as possible.
Yeah, and those combinations are amazing. Like we have a school of communications here, and they can combine it with strategic communication and communication, or media studies, information and data science, and then creative technology and design, which is a minor out of the engineering school. I have students that have gone in with arts and humanities, a double major or a minor, into publishing and into museum curating and things like that, where they're running the business end on behalf of the enterprise. It's really pretty cool, but they have a background knowledge of the field they're in by virtue of the smart use of their electives.
And one thing that we want to point out on this is, for some of these other pathways that are very popular pairings with econ, math, applied math, computer science, for some students, physics, those departments require a robust skill set in calculus. And so what we want to make sure that our students know is, whether completed at the community college or here at Boulder, if they're able to take the calculus MAT 201 through the community college, the 5-credit version of calculus, that's the one that's equivalent to our 5-credit Math 1300 course at Boulder. That calculus course is the one that's universally recognized on our campus as Calculus 1. Our 3-credit version of calculus, which would be Survey of Calculus at the community college, or our version of Math Tools for Economists 2, consider that like Calculus Light. It's your basic functions, limits, derivatives, but without trigonometry. And so a lot of times when students are looking to pursue a math minor after having taken just the 3-credit calculus, they have to repeat or move on to that 5-credit calculus course before they can advance on to Calc 2. So that's one of the recommendations that we have in terms of helpful tips for transfer. And I'm kind of going out of order on this, but one of those themes is, we would love for students to complete as much math as possible at the community college, but at least through calculus. And if their skill set and their motivation has them succeeding in MAT 201, that's fantastic. If it's the survey of calculus and they say, I'm not math oriented, I'm not looking to go any further beyond that direction, that's totally fine. And that 3-credit calculus course is substantial prerequisite for them to get started right away in our intermediate level theory courses. So we always want to make sure do as much math as you can early on. We also recommend completing foreign language coursework through the community college system as best as possible as well. That's always one of those gen ed requirements that we see sometimes, even with our students that start in their first year at CU Boulder, is if they're not naturally inclined to get vested in foreign language right away, we see that that requirement area gets kind of put on the back burner a lot of times. And we don't like to see students get caught up in, transferring in their junior year and saying, oh, I have got 3 specific language courses that I have to complete alongside the rest of my requirements. So if we can knock that out early through the community college or early on in their time at CU, that's a whole lot better. And go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in a related to this calculus too, is that a lot of students think once they've done calculus, they're kind of done with math. No, you're just beginning your math in economics. It gets very heavy in the intermediate level theory, particularly micro. So, as a word to the wise student, if you want to major in economics at the 4-year level, then you should basically embrace math and statistics and figure that that's going to be part of your diet for the entire program of study. It's just a reality in today's modern economic theory, is that it's very mathematized, and the calculus is used for the modeling, and the statistics is used to test hypotheses that are derived from those models. And so it's very important aspect, and it just doesn't end with calculus.
And then as Ken had mentioned before, and again, our overarching theme is we always encourage exploration as much as possible early and often. If a student can transfer to Boulder already having an awareness of what that secondary interest area can be or should be, it helps with our efficient planning for them to sculpt out the rest of their degree requirements in a very timely fashion. And again, we're always going to be encouraging, even thinking about through Gen Ed completion, what are those exploratory options within the different distributions that really create a unique set of learning opportunities. And our last little kind of tip there is for our community college students who earned their Associate of Arts degree. When they transfer to CU Boulder, there's not a lot of wiggle room that they have for completing lower division credits. So if a student earns that degree with distinction, we know that when they transfer, they've got a minimum of 60 credits remaining to complete the Boulder degree. And of those 60 credits, 45 credit hours are going to be completed at the upper division level. So that's coursework that's 3,000 and 4,000 level in the Boulder curriculum. Through the economics major, they're going to complete a total of 29 upper division credits. So after you do the quick math there, their remaining elective space at that point, there's still going to be 16 upper division hours to go. And then you'd only have just a little wiggle room again for lower division coursework. So if that AA degree recipient transfers in and they're still wanting to explore secondary areas of interest, it can possibly push back their degree completion time. Otherwise, we would look at that and work with that student right away to say, if we're looking for another interest area, maybe it's an emphasis in the economics major, because that ancillary coursework required of an emphasis is all upper division coursework. But again, say you have the AA degree earned, you get all of those Gen Ed requirements already approved for transfer, but what if the foreign language component isn't finished? Well, right there could be 12 to 13 credits right there just for those 3 language courses. So we want to make sure that we let everyone know that of course, we're always going to welcome any transfer student along the way, or those who bring an AA degree. If they do bring that AA degree, we're going to be a little bit more exacting, making sure that they know there's going to be a heavier lift with those upper division credits right away. Anything to add there, Ken?
No, I think you're good. We can move on.
Okay.
Hey,
Cool.
Dave, I'd like to actually add a few things if I can.
Oh, sure, please.
So just to kind of supplement this information, I think one thing to be aware of is any student that's attending a Colorado community college, regardless of whether or not it is an AA or an AS, that CU actually has a policy as part of our undergraduate catalog that indicates that if a student does complete an Associate of Arts or an Associate of Science, it doesn't specifically need to be the degree with designation, that will essentially exempt students from having to do additional general education once they transfer to CU Boulder. So essentially, when students have that completed AA or AS, regardless of whether or not it's the degree with designation, they'll be exempted from having to take any additional general education at the university. So as Ken and Dave were discussing, essentially on that pie chart, what the student would have remaining is going to be the major specific coursework and the electives. The other thing to also clarify too with the foreign language requirement is that some students may actually have this language requirement completed from high school. If they completed 3 years of the same language from high school, that essentially would satisfy the language requirement both for our minimum academic preparation standards and also for general education. So at CU, general education and MAPS oftentimes will overlap. The exception to this is if students are transferring into CU and they've completed the AA or the AS, and they're exempted from general education if they've not completed that language requirement, because it is a MAPS requirement, students will still need to complete the language requirement once they transfer into CU Boulder. Essentially, the expectation is that if students have anything remaining from those minimum academic preparation standards, and I'll pop a link into the chat so you all can take a look at those MAPS requirements, they will still need the foreign language. It's not specifically covered by the completion of the AA or the AS.
Thank you for that clarity, Katie. So, quick segue into the academic support that we provide our econ students on campus. So, a really nice thing that the econ department provides all students taking econ classes on campus is our free drop-in tutoring lab that is coordinated by one of our faculty members and staffed by our upper division students, junior and senior level students. And they tutor in math, principles, theory courses, the intermediate level theory courses, and statistics. So we have a very nice set of student tutors who provide those drop-in hours on a weekly basis during the fall and spring semesters. We also have private tutoring, which is coordinated through our graduate students. So at Boulder, through our undergraduate program, normal trajectory, graduate program is only a PhD program. So these are PhD candidates who are going through their motions of their curriculum and also sharing their time by providing tutoring hours as well for our undergraduate students at all levels of the curriculum. The main difference is that they are at cost. And for some of those tutors, they charge a pretty penny. For others, it's a little bit more manageable for students. We're always going to encourage our undergrads to always start with the free tutoring if they need more support to graduate up to more private tutoring if need be. We're always encouraging students to make use of their instructor and faculty office hours. We have an excellent academic coaching program in arts and sciences and across campus that's ever growing. So if we have students that find themselves in academic troubles after a semester or a year, and they're new transfer students or new students to the campus, they will get a link to academic coaching, working with one of our coaching colleagues on all things related to academic support and holistic wellness support as well. We also offer tutoring through the Residence Life program at CU Boulder, which is popular with a lot of our students taking econ classes. And then I'll hopefully show this later on if time allows. We have a nice courses tab on our econ website that archives every single course syllabi for every one of our classes each semester. So students are able to at any time go to that courses tab, and if they're projecting into what's to come in the major, they can pull those documents, they can see what are the learning outcomes at each level of our curriculum, what are the textbooks being used, the week-to-week, day-to-day schedule. So that's a nice little overview that we provide everyone. And then obviously just general basic online resources. Khan Academy is a very popular support for a lot of our students. So we're always going to, again, offer up and make sure students know that there is a wealth of support that we provide behind the scenes for anyone who needs that assistance. Again, whether it's starting out with the math or the calculus, principles level theory courses, or even more advanced intermediate theory or the electives.
Yeah, and
And then,
we would be remiss to not mention the excellent advising support that they receive in the Department of Economics. The door is always open. There's no question that cannot be asked. There's no limit to how many times you can access us. We're always there for our students. And I personally have no problem if anybody from the community colleges want to send prospective students our way to talk through our program. All you have to do is send an email and we can set them up on our calendar. I love talking to prospective students. So, you're welcome to do that anytime.
so KB, you want to walk us through this slide on co-curriculars?
Sure. The Economics Club is student run. It's coordinated by a faculty member. It's as active as the students who join it. It can be very active some years and less active others. Usually there's often there's presentations about career opportunities or academic opportunities, or presentations of interesting research by students and faculty. But the possibility exists to really make it go with some great invitations from outside the university, and it does come with funding. Honors thesis program is a huge deal. It's a 2-seminar program. It means an extra economics course. That's the senior thesis course. And that's done in the senior year. It's a huge feather in the cap for those wanting to go into grad school. It's a research project using econometric analysis and heavy theory. And our best students go into that. And it's been key in helping some students not only get into grad school, but to get funding for teaching or research assistantships. CU in DC is a great internship course opportunity where students go and live in Washington, DC and intern with a government agency or a nonprofit. And they write a small research project out of the experience and information they gain from that. It's a great opportunity. They also take some general ed courses while they're with that. Actuarial Club speaks to our actuarial and quantitative finance program that is a collaboration of economics, math, and business. CU in DC, Actuarial Club is just an offshoot of that, but I do want you to know that we do have the actuarial certificate and the quantitative finance certificate, and the club members get to know one another, network, and also help each other with the very difficult coursework that is involved in actuarial science and quantitative finance. Student government, always a good opportunity. CU's student government is the most highly financed student government in the entire country. They manage millions of dollars, and for clubs and organizations and other activities, programming and stuff. And many of our students have gotten involved in all levels, but also in high levels with the student government. It's a great resume builder, but also a great experience in doing some real world economics and politics. The alternative spring break, maybe you could speak to that one, David. I'm not as familiar with that, or TEDx.
So Alternative Spring Break is one of those wonderful programs on our campus that's structured through the Volunteer Resource Center that provides a service learning excursion trip for students who want to participate. So it's a service learning exercise where, again, you take that time typically in the spring semester with our traditional spring break time to give back to the community wherever those sponsored break trips are happening. And we're growing a number of TED at CU talks. We have a lot of our students who are interested in structuring those events. And so we put this in here to show that this is a lot of where our econ majors like to spend some of their free time, through those spring break excursions, TED Talks, volunteering to structure the Conference on World Affairs, which is a wonderful event that we host every spring semester, bringing a wealth of global mindsets together. And our students love to volunteer their time to help with all of the behind the scenes support that goes into the conference. We got students working with admissions as student ambassadors, and then our connection with the Leeds School of Business. We have a lot of our majors who spend time in the finance club and the investment club, and show interest in the business of sports certificate program in the summer. And again, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but kind of just highlighting the great variety of opportunities there are for our students to engage.
Yeah, another program that's not listed on here that's kind of important is the INVEST program, INVS, which is an opportunity to do community service and earn credit. And economics or students of any discipline can apply their discipline to this program. It's a great way to get involved in the community in a variety of contexts and get credit and solid experience that it can be referred to for future opportunities post grad. So it's a great program. And nothing about the business of sports program. It's a little bitty program, but it underlies deep connections that CU Boulder has with the sports professional sports community in Colorado and elsewhere. So those who are really the sporty types that really want to get into the sports business, and a lot of my students do, CU Economics with working with business minor and business of sports program can get a foot in the door in professional sports.
We're going to quickly go through this slide. A lot of times, our economics population has a lot of students who aspire to transition to the School of Business, whether they know that early on or kind of discover that over time. So what we wanted to do is just quickly highlight the fact that we're also for, again, lack of a better term, I think Ken and I refer to ourselves as business advisors just the same, because we work with these requirements a lot with students. And in the basic articulation agreement from our community colleges, students are going to take micro and macro principles in intro to stats per our recommendation. And those are 3 of the 4 courses that are required of students who want to transfer into the School of Business. So if they're able to work at that at the community college level, they would transfer into Boulder and only have the math analysis and business course to go, as long as they have the grades that they're looking for, right? So Leeds is looking for a 3.0 CU Boulder cumulative GPA, but specific grades of B- or higher in math analysis and business, the introductory stats course, and then micro and macro principles. If students have been taking business-oriented classes at the community college, they need to make sure that they bring that 2.0 or higher. So we wanted to throw in just this little caveat there that when we're working with students, we don't necessarily want to let them know that falling back on econ, if they don't get into the business school, is the best course of action. It takes a little bit of conversation with students to make sure that they know that training, again, it's very high end with that quantitative analysis. You got to really know the math components. You got to be really comfortable with the math. And a lot of times we'll get students that will transfer having micro and macro principles done. They'll have stats done as well, but maybe they only got through college algebra before transfer. And if they come into the econ curriculum and they say, I'm still kind of aspiring for the business school. And then they say, okay, now I'm ready to commit to econ. As Ken mentioned before, that student's going to have to work their way up with their math competency through calculus before they can start exploring those intermediate level theory courses. So it can or it could delay possibly. Again, the student getting the opportunity to engage that economics coursework for maybe 1 or 2 semesters. So they transfer, and it's been, you know, a year to a year and a half before they've been in the classroom again taking an economics course. And then boom, they're put right into the intermediate level theory courses. So we just want to make that known to say, we want to make sure that when students are aspiring to business, they know that the coursework that goes into transfer is going to open up some of the doors for econ, but to make sure that they feel that comfort with math, if econ is that secondary option, that they'll be able to hit the ground running once they choose that path.
Hey, Dave.
And then we want to put in, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, I just wanted to clarify 2 things essentially. So the information that Dave just shared is for our internal transfer process. So this is our process that's called an intra-university transfer. That essentially is what a student would go through if they were initially admitted to a major in economics and then they wanted to switch to a major in the Leeds School of Business. External to the university, when students are applying for the Leeds School of Business. So let's say, for instance, a student is kind of torn between whether or not they want to do maybe like finance in the Leeds School of Business or wanting to do economics, which is part of the College of Arts and Sciences. Those actually have 2 separate admission criteria. So the admission criteria for the Leeds School of Business is close to, but slightly different than these requirements that are listed on the slide. So for students that are external transfer, so in this instance, coming directly from the Colorado Community College, and let's say they're interested in finance, they would need to meet a 3.0 cumulative college GPA, completion of micro and macro economics with a B- or better, and then also completion of either an introductory statistics, business statistics, or that survey of calculus course. So that's one thing to be aware of, is this is slightly different than what students are going to see externally. Students that are applying directly for a major in economics, their admission criteria is going to simply be a GPA. So for the College of Arts and Sciences, the admissions criteria is going to be a 2.5 cumulative college GPA. Just wanted to clarify, because I know there's like an internal process that we have that oftentimes Dave and Ken see with students that decide that they no longer want to major in economics. And then there's an external process for the students that you would probably specifically be meeting with if they're maybe trying to go between whether or not they want to do economics, which is not part of the Leeds School of Business.
Thank you, Katie.
Just one add on to that is that if the student is having difficulty making it through the math or making it into the business college because they're having difficulty with math, it's likely they'll also have difficulty with economics. And it might be a cue to advisors to get them to have them consider alternative backup major to business if math is the hang up, and oftentimes it is for them getting into the College of Business. Stats can be less so, but that can also be a hang up that might be a clue as to whether or not they should go with economics as a backup.
Thank you, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Real quickly, we want to put in a quick plug for education abroad, study abroad. Slowly but surely, global travel is opening back up. And so we're always going to encourage our students, if it's safe to travel abroad and they can fit it into their degree plan, we want them to go and experience that wonderful opportunity. So a lot of times in our curriculum and within the partner programs through education abroad, most of our students are going to travel in their junior year, or maybe at the start in the first semester of their senior year. And that means that they've gone through the motions of already having completed the intermediate level theory coursework, probably the econometrics requirement, stats requirement for sure. So what we try to do a lot of times is to provide approvals for certain programs where students can go and take a couple 4,000 level economics electives overseas. So we've got certain regions of the globe where those 4,000 level equivalencies are well established. United Kingdom, Australia, China, Japan. Then there are certain programs that just don't make a good fit because of how their economics curriculum is structured. Spain, for example, and that's a big pain point because Spain is so wonderful to travel to, but it doesn't work necessarily well with the economics curriculum. So we work hand in hand with students right away to say, if this is something that's desired, let's sit down right away, make this an optimal travel experience, whether we can do it in the major or again, making great use of some free elective credit space or some of the gen ed requirements. In the arts and humanities area is very popular to get done abroad, as well as global diversity. It's a little bit more difficult with writing and with natural sciences. Anything to throw in there, Ken?
No, I think you covered it. Basically, you know, well, one more thing is that there's a difference between foreign language abroad and English study abroad. And typically going to a non-English speaking country, they also do language along with their econ, some culture courses.
Okay. So when we talk about engagement with our students for career trajectories and support, we're going to share some little data here that was provided by our Career Services Office pre-COVID times. Okay, so this isn't necessarily 100% accurate to the moment right now, but it was our last set of robust data points that we could use. And that was that 65% of our bachelor's degree grads found full-time employment within 6 months of graduation, which is an absolutely wonderful statistic. And then we see that increase another 5% to 70% of our students who utilize the support provided through Career Services Office and we call our handshake job and internship portal. Those who engage and use those support resources, generally they are getting that full-time employment again within 6 months of graduation, but at a much higher level than those who aren't engaging those support mechanisms. And then again, for those who are starting that job search within 2 months before graduation, it's a really good placement, 60%. But Ken and I, we're gonna work with those students right away as soon as we engage them to say, what are we thinking vocationally? And again, that's the beauty of economics. It's such a universal skill set that's applicable to every single industry. And so our top industries for Boulder graduates here is almost a mirror reflection of the top industries for economics graduates. But of course, econ is going to skew a little bit more towards the consulting, towards finance, not necessarily defense down there, but public sector, working for local, state, federal government offices. So it's really nice that we can look at that and say, Universal at CU, these are our top industries, and they mirror the same placement for our current students in those basic themes. But to break it down even a little bit more is what are some of those more popular trajectories that me and Ken work with our students, and I'll let Ken take over and kind of walk us through this material.
Yeah, as you can see in the top list of bullet points, these are our top areas where they go. econs go, and a lot of them it's because that's where they want to go. But again, economics degree is not limiting in any way. They can go into any field, including nonprofit work, big time. Also, something I'm hoping will develop over time, hopefully shorter time period than sometimes it seems, is working in the environmental fields. We're going to see hopefully a big upgrading of our energy infrastructure, transportation infrastructure around the problem of climate disruption and so forth. And this is going to provide a lot of opportunity for graduates. And then the lower set of bullet points are just specific corporations that they've gone into, all kinds. I mean, this is just a tiny little slice. I mean, we're looking at hundreds of different kinds of trajectories that we've seen over our years as advisors for our students into every kind of field you can possibly imagine, because economics and the skill set, the analytical, critical thinking, mathematical modeling and statistical analysis skill sets, writing and reading comprehension, everything is developed in economics and is valuable, are valuable transferable skill sets that our graduates carry into the field post-graduation. I can't begin to think of so many. I've had students do things interest on the wall as one I think is to go into the wild animal sanctuary to become an expert in training tigers. Why? Because he wanted to start his own sanctuary in another state and use his economic skills to get the business aspect down when he starts his own wild animal sanctuary. Had another one who started a business on the Front Range using his economics and analytical skills to start a firm planting organic vegetable and fruit and spice gardens for well-to-do people who can afford to do that up and down the Front Range who want to do something with their land that's productive, but they themselves don't have the time. And so this guy put together a crew, and they're still working at it. They're from Fort Collins and working up and down the Front Range, planting gardens for people in neighborhoods all over. And it's just great stuff. There's just so many different applications. And then finally, the startup industry in Colorado is big, and particularly in Boulder is big. The business school is particularly connected to that. And one way our students can get connected to that aspect without being business majors is to be a business minor. And then you get access to Leeds networking and career resources and so forth. And that's a way to get a foothold into the startup, into startups, and even get connections with venture capitalists. So there's just really a lot of things that we can point our students to. And again, we invite you to send them our way whenever you want.
At this point, we are kind of at the end of our PowerPoint presentation component. Before we move on to questions, and again, want to be mindful of the time. I know we got about 25 minutes left, and we want to leave the most time for questions there. I'm just going to do a quick run through a couple PDFs and our website. And hopefully this will pull up on your screen here in 1 second. But we wanted to show you our list of the topical elective courses that we offer in our curriculum. So if you remember the major and minor flow chart, we just had those boxes saying 4,000 level, 4,000 level. Well, we wanted to really show you the great diversification that our students enjoy with the topical electives in the major. So they're listed on our page kind of in these general themes, But students can pick and choose any variety of these courses that they would like to take. So it can get as unique as a student taking money and banking with economic history of Europe and transportation economics and market design. If someone is really saying, hey, I really want to get into environmental stewardship and public policy. Well, Ken and I are going to get that student to consider environmental economics, natural resource economics, political and public choice economics, economics of the government sector. For those who are really into data analysis and number crunching, we're going to have them look at those quantitative econ courses, topics in micro, intro to math economics, as much econometrics that they can handle. So we want to make sure that everyone sees there's a wide breadth of opportunities for students to engage some really cool courses with some really cool faculty. And our prerequisites, again, 3070 is intermediate micro. That's going to open up just intermediate micro, 90% of the doors right there. When they combine intermediate micro and statistics, which is 3818, that's going to open up 99% of the doors. So again, that's where we say it's very methodical, very sequential. Once an intermediate theory course is unlocked, we can advance on to that next level. Okay. And then again, just for the sake of time, I'm going to pull up some basic navigation here, okay, in terms of looking at our website. So if you're working with a student in your office to say, I'd like to know a little bit more about what goes down through the CU Boulder experience, let Google be your friend. Just type in CU Boulder Econ. And when you have that typed in, our economics webpage is going to open up. So this is what students are basically going to be navigating when they come to our webpage. And most students are going to hover in the people section, the courses tab, in the undergraduate section. So before, when we were telling you how we archive all of our syllabi, if a student makes their way to the courses tab, this is what they see when they navigate to this web page. So it's going to show all of our semester courses with hyperlinks to the actual syllabi. And so if there's a course here that's being taught in the moment, it's going to show here. But if there was one of those 4,000 level electives, Chinese economic history, for example, is not being taught this spring. But if a student wanted to see if there was that syllabus, they can go to our actual syllabi library, because we archive every single semester, which is very helpful. So you just got to backtrack a little bit. But if that student said, hey, I'm in intermediate micro right now, I'm digging this material and I want to move into topics in microeconomics, they click that tab, and then what pulls up here is the actual syllabus for the class. So we spend time, again, looking with students, say, here's what's to come, right? And our faculty do a great job of giving the basic course description of what goes into the material. What are the objectives of the class? If there's prerequisites, what are the texts being used? What are the requirements? What are the graded elements, right? And then what we always find most helpful is way down below, they'll put the week-to-week trajectory somewhere in here. There we go, right? The course outline, the week-to-week trajectory. So this way students can really see at any given moment in time what's going to come with these classes. So it's a very helpful tool that our department organizes on that front. Another area, again, where we're going to see a lot of students navigate to is the undergraduate tab itself. And so on the undergraduate tab, we list all of our requirements, the flow charts that we just looked at, the hyperlink to our elective course list, and then overviews for the emphases down below as well, so hyperlinks to those requirements. And then on the right-hand side of our undergrad tab is links again to a lot of those resources that are very helpful for our students. So all of our advising info is archived here. Information about honors, our actuarial and quantitative club, the tutoring, right? And job and internship opportunities. So if a student said, oh, what's cooking in the econ major with jobs and internships? They click that link and it takes them to the archive of every single job and internship opportunity that gets marketed to our department. We're going to archive right on this webpage. So it's kind of a living, breathing website as Ken gets emails from different groups in the region, as I get emails, as some of our faculty get emails. We're going to centralize this support for students on this webpage. And then like if a student said, hey, I want to take a look at that free drop-in tutorial lab, that's again going to pull up a link to the PDF that shows all of our undergraduates tutoring hours, the specific classes that they support, the times to engage in the medium right now. So again, we really like to encourage students to drive to our web pages for no other reason than everything we kind of talk about in our meetings. We also make sure there's information provided in this venue. And then the last one that's really helpful on this front is the People tab. So when you click on the People tab, you get sent right to the links that show all of our faculty in the department, their research areas. If you click on one person's bio, you're going to get the specific information about the classes they teach, their academic background, links to their personal websites, if it's available. So there's our friend, Professor Mansfield. So it's a way, again, for students to start identifying cool professors in their research to take classes with, maybe partner with on the honors thesis as well. So again, we keep this as up to date on a semester to semester basis as possible. And yeah, on that note, back to our questions component. So again, we've got our email addresses down below here for myself and for Ken. At any time, anyone is free to send us a note. We are happy to engage and talk all the time. But right now, let's go ahead and open it up to the audience for questions. I think we got a good 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, so it looks like we got a question in our chat that says, for the math requirement, must a student complete both calculus for social sciences and business and calculus 1, or is this an either or requirement? Also, do they take one or both of these classes in addition to the math tools for economist sequence?
It's an either or requirement, and the math tools for economist sequence is one math track or sequence that students can choose. That's the standard one without trigonometry, just basic to economics and basic to an undergraduate degree in economics. The calculus, the pre-calculus calculus track with trigonometry, and it's usually 5 credits instead of 3, is for those students who want a more advanced math track. Say they want to go to grad school or go into quantitative finance or actuarial studies or something like that, or just love math to the point where they really want to have a deeper and somewhat broader background in mathematics. So it's an either or, and they can change their mind in the middle and go from the standard track to the more advanced track, but it does take a little bit of extra planning once you decide. Okay, what else we got? As far as the transfer process, I think if they're on a 4-year track, an ideal time to transfer is in their 3rd or 4th semester. Make sure the foreign languages out of the way, make sure that they have at least the lower division micro macro theory and calculus, and maybe some exploratory courses in other fields of interest that they can combine with economics, and then they can hit the ground running, achieving multiple goals in their degree program here at the university.
Okay,
You want
so,
to go for that, David?
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I don't have the chat open.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
Okay,
the next question says, the statewide agreement for economics requires MAT 201, the calculus course, and also MAT 135, Introduction to Statistics. Would it be better for students to pursue the AA General, or should they follow the AA Economics and take the MAT 135, knowing that it's not truly necessary, but can give them a basic understanding of statistics?
So on that note, we would really encourage students to make sure they get that calculus requirement done. And like what Ken was saying earlier was, the students are going to complete an upper division statistics course within the major curriculum no matter what. And the intro to statistics class taught at the community college level, we know transfers is lower division. And what we can basically share is anecdotally, the students who complete intro to stats, whether at the community college or here in our curriculum, and then advance into our economic statistics course for the major, they perform at such a higher level in that class. So it's great preparation for those students to get that stats exposure early on with a more, foundational statistics course. But what's required is the calculus component. The stats is just a recommended course through that process. But again, those who bring forth the calc and the stats find themselves more equipped to be successful right away in their immersion in our intermediate level curriculum.
So I've got a follow-up question to that. So would the recommendation be then that students complete at least the calc course? So if they decide to do the AA General, doing the MAT 125, if they do decide to do the AA Economics, that they do the MAT 201, and then they also have the Economics 201 and the 202 prior to transferring to the university? Would that be kind of like a generalized recommendation for students?
Yeah, I think for the most part, we want to, get our macro and micro done in consecutive semesters. The highest level of calculus that the student is comfortable completing, we're going to encourage always go for the highest level, because it's, again, going to open up more doors for some of our partner minors, like with math, computer science, but also the more equipped the student is with the comfort level of calculus, the better they are with their economics theory courses in general. So anytime we're looking at the survey of calculus versus the 5-credit bearing calculus course, the preparation from that 5-credit calc course is much more advanced, and we see stronger grade outcomes with the economics courses by going that direction. And it's not to say that the 3-credit calculus course doesn't prepare students just as well. It's just not as robust. Either one is going to get the requirement done. But again, we don't want a student to really press it with the calculus if their just comfort level is not there. We want to always encourage babies stepping to the appropriate level. If it's just getting the 3-credit variety done, fantastic. If it's getting the 5-credit variety done, even better.
I see the question about foreign language credit. I think at the community college level that they should get their foreign language done at the community college or as early as possible. The foreign language courses tend to be 5 credits, particularly at the 1,000 level courses, but many of them in the 2,000 levels. Student has to get through the 3rd level. What I would recommend for, they get in the way, in other words, because they're big courses, and the sooner the student gets the foreign language out of the way, the more freedom they have of choice, both in terms of timing and course choice, once they get to the 4-year level. Definitely the sooner the better. I'd start them out with a placement, especially if they're coming right out of high school, they might place higher than they think. They can always go back and retake with a little brush up, get as high as you can and finish it off. Try not to come, finish it off before you transfer. Try not to come to the university to 4-year with foreign language hanging over your head, if at all possible.
So I'd also like to echo what Ken just said. So essentially, there's not a minimum number of semesters that a student actually needs to complete. What the university is looking for in terms of the foreign language is that the student has a proficiency at the intermediate level. And so essentially, if a student can complete the 3rd level of a language without having to do like the beginning semesters, then they may only need to do a single semester of a language. So essentially, the important piece there is they need like the 3rd semester in a language sequence completed. So I think that's where it's really important that the placement come into place to really determine the number of semesters the student actually needs. If they're starting at beginning, the most that they will need to complete is 3 semesters until they get to like an intermediate 1 level.
I see another question there about arts and humanities and physical sciences. On the arts and humanities, personal choice, but the ones most with economics are history and philosophy. There's a lot of crossover between the two, but really, again, you got to really like that. And then I've had students that do literature because they want to go into the publishing business, and they use their economics for the business side of that. Physical sciences, I tend to encourage my students, if they're really into science, then go for the generals, general physics, general chemistry, and all that. However, most of my students are not into that science that much, so my recommendation to them is avoid the generals and do courses around things like, one of my favorites is environmental issues. Look at atmospheric science, ATOC, atmospheric and oceanic science. Look at physical geography. Because economics is about people interacting with the earth, the physical earth. There's courses in geology that are really good, like natural disasters and geologic hazards. Great course, a lot of fun, great videos of disasters and geologic hazards. Use the science to prep for what you want to do. We have a huge variety of science courses for lay scientists, people that are not going into natural sciences as a major. Plenty of room for that. And one of the sciences in our curriculum now with the general ed is general psychology. The only general I recommend actually to the non-scientists, general psychology. And that's great for fields such as behavioral economics, survey research, and other kinds of things around economic issues.
So I'm also just going to clarify on the psychology. If a student's actually taking the psych 1 and 2 at the community colleges, since it's a GT pathways course, if it transfers in, that's actually going to apply towards a social science, and students actually don't need additional social sciences because the major in economics is automatically going to satisfy the social sciences for general education for students. That's one of the tricky things that we have. So internally at CU, we classify psych as natural science, and then the state classifies psychology as a social science. So there's a discrepancy there between like students taking that course at CU versus it transferring in from a Colorado community college.
Katie, that it does transfer in as Psych 1001, doesn't it, at CU when they do the GT pathways, correct?
It does, but it still plugs in as a social science course.
Yeah, we can have that repointed into the
Okay.
natural sciences because the social science component of the general ed is covered by economics anyway.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Three minutes to spare, huh?
Well, we really thank you for sticking with it. It was a lot of information. Feel free to hit us up with questions anytime if there's late questions or any questions that arise while you're advising students. And again, feel free to send students our way for prospective transfer advising in economics. More than happy to work with anyone that you're working with.
And to be very selfish, we work with the greatest students on campus. And so we really look at it and say, we're all in it together. Any point of contact with anyone on our team is welcome contact. And we're always going to work together to do what's in the best interest of our students. And so we want that comfort level to be presented out to every student that we engage, but also to our wonderful colleagues across the state of Colorado. If there's anything we can ever demystify, brainstorm, help support from your ends, we are welcome to partner up anytime you'd like. And again, a big shout out to Jessica, to Katie, to McKenna, to Lauren. They're doing such wonderful work with our pre-transfer populations of students, and we're building really cohesive pipelines to make the process as robust and supportive for students transitioning to CU Boulder. So we look forward to being a part of taking over the wonderful support that you provide them to make sure that that wonderful support is provided all the way to graduation.
So Ken and Dave, thank you so much for joining us today. That was really great information. We really appreciate it. Thank you to our community college colleagues for joining us today. So just a note, we recorded this session, and so we will also be providing it to all of our contacts at the Colorado community colleges. So if you do have any colleagues that ask about this session or any of the others, once I have an opportunity to edit these, I will go ahead and send those out as a resource for everyone. So thank you again for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.